Hello and welcome everyone to the webinar about top 3 hacks to make your life easier. I do have a bit of a spoiler alert though that these hacks involve our software, but we want to show you what hacks we are trying to address problems for and why we invented the software with you in mind. And today we have your host, Lauren, who began her career with HR for Health almost 8 years ago as an HR specialist. She quickly developed an interest in problem solving through software, eventually becoming the operations manager. In this role, she recognized the difficulties of managing employees without the right tools. And now, as our product manager, she sees everything behind the scenes and is the face behind your software and the face behind all your solutions too. So, I also want to tell you a little bit about what we will learn today. And there's no surprises with us. So we'll give you the 3 different hacks that will make your life easier, but we're also going to show you how it works in the actual software itself. And then at the end, I'm going to give you a quick recap of what we learned and then the different ways that you can get into contact with us. And I should probably tell you who we are if you don't know who HR for Health is. Our mission is to simplify HR processes and make them less stressful for businesses of all sizes. We bring to the table a combination of HR expertise and technology advanced solutions, which that was just a super fancy salesy way to say that we've built a software that is so easy to use, and we don't want you to have to know everything about HR. We don't want you to know about all the different employment laws, how to calculate overtime, how to manage payroll, and all of the new laws that are happening. Your job should be to focus on the patients and who you're serving and the community around you. And then HR for Health comes in and says, we'll take care of all the hard stuff and make sure that you don't get sued. And we want to make sure that you're treating your employees as they should be treated. But there's an easier way to do it, and we simplify it, put it in a software that doesn't have a million different settings and features within it. You get exactly what you need for what you're paying for, and there's no additional frills and things that you'll never use and you feel like you don't get your money's worth. Every feature within HR for Health is built with you in mind, and we want to make sure you get the most out of it without overcomplicating everything about HR in our software. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Lauren, who's going to share all of the different hacks with you today, what solutions we're solving, and how to make your life a whole lot easier.
Awesome. Thank you, Taylor. Yes, our goal is always to make your life easier. Another spoiler, there are more than 3 hacks in here. I couldn't help myself. So you'll get lots of little tips and tricks and hacks throughout the way. But let's start off with HR Assistant, your time saver superhero. We know running a practice takes so much time. You have to focus on the business and your patients and your employees. So we want to save every minute that we can for you. So the first one is law updates. So keeping track of law updates, especially from the federal perspective and your state specific, is very difficult. You don't have time to just sit and Google these things. So we're automatically providing law updates based on your state. So you're only going to get your state's law updates and the federal ones. So just this year, we've sent out 138 law updates. So that's just in 2023 thus far. There are more coming out. Again, the end of the year is the most popular. Mid-year, January 1st is always a big date. So you want to make sure that you're keeping an eye on those and making sure that you're updating any forms that you need to with those law updates, updating your handbook policies to show that you're in compliance with it. So again, we want to just make that easy for you. We're going to automatically alert you of those changes. And I'll show you in the software later in the demo how that looks so you know exactly where to look in the software. And then just a little tip. I-9, so they actually just released a new one. So if you don't have the 2023 version, make sure that you do. But if you're using the old one, or even if you're missing something on the form, each violation could range from $272 to $2,700. So that's something that can totally be avoided, easy mistakes to avoid. So we want to make sure that you're always in the know on those updates. Okay, the next one, which is my personal favorite, is wage calculations. So things like bonuses, overtime, multiple pay rates. There's a lot of formulas. Who knew there was so much math in HR? I tried to avoid math going into HR, but I couldn't. So for example, non-discretionary bonuses, this means something that the employee knows how to earn. So it might be an attendance bonus. It might be based on how many patients they're seeing. It might be based on what they're producing, what they're collecting in the practice. So those bonuses actually have to be calculated into their overtime rate. So let me back up a little bit. All non-exempt employees have to be paid overtime. So a really common misconception in the healthcare world is that you can just pay your employees' salary and you don't have to pay them overtime. But a majority of the employees actually should be classified as non-exempt employees, and that means that they do have to get overtime. So if you're giving bonuses, especially if they're non-discretionary, where the employee knows how to get it, it's based on their performance, you want to make sure that you're calculating that into their overtime rate as well. Again, crazy formulas, but HR for Health takes care of this for you, so you're not having to sit there and trying to figure out the math or do an Excel formula. It's automatically taken care of. And then the same for multiple pay rates. So let's say you have a hygienist who also does admin work. We know hygienists are highly paid employees, so you don't want to pay them their hygienist rate for admin work. You can pay them at that lower rate as long as it's above minimum wage, of course. But overtime that they work has to be what's called a weighted average. So it's a combination of those two rates. So you can't just pay them the overtime at the lower rate of pay. Again, we take care of all those calculations for you. So I know it sounds scary, but it's all taken care of when you're using our timekeeping and payroll reports. So I won't go into all those calculations, but just know we take care of it for you. And then just another little tip here, the average claim for an FLSA claim, so the Fair Labor Standards Act, was $1,200 per employee in back pay. So it might not sound like that much on its own, but if you have 10 employees, that can add up really quickly. So we just want to make sure that you're paying everything correctly from the start. So we automatically take care of it for you, so you don't have those claims and that extra pay that you have to pay down the road. Okay, and the next one is timekeeping and time off. So timekeeping, a lot of systems out there, it might be the one that you're using right now, requires the manager to edit or add timesheets for their employees, which can take a lot of time, especially, if all of your employees have timesheet edits, I forgot to clock out for lunch, or I forgot to clock in for the day, that can take a lot of time that you shouldn't have to spend with timesheets. So our software actually allows the employee to make those edits, and then it sends to the manager or you as the owner for approval. So the employees can't just put in whatever they want, but if they do need to make an edit, it'll be marked as needing approval, pending, and then you as the manager can approve it. So again, it's just saving your time from actually having to make those edits for them. And then time off tracking. I know a lot of people use, Excel sheets, Post-it notes for some requests. We want to make that as easy as possible for you as well. So automatically tracking how many hours they have based on, sometimes you might have a per hour accrual, so that's directly tied to our timekeeping system. Maybe you have a lump sum where they get it all up front. So we take care of all of that for you. And then as employees are taking time off, you would just select which bank you want it to deduct from, and it shows the balance to your employees at all times. So again, you're not having to answer if your employee comes in and says, oh, how many PTO hours do I have left? They can always see it on their end as well. So again, these might seem like small things, but it's just taking, chipping off minutes to your day, and we want to make sure that you can focus on what you need to. And then just a quick tip on time off for protected leave. You want to make sure that you're clearly documenting the return date with your employee so that they know exactly when they need to return from that protected leave. If you don't have that date in place, it can get a little bit wishy-washy, and you just want to make sure that your expectations are extremely clear there. Okay, the next one we're going to jump into is the Handbook Software. So first of all, why does a handbook matter? Why do I need it? So we consider this your first line of defense. So if an employee, maybe they were terminated on bad terms, they're upset, so they're going to go to an attorney and say, what kind of claim can I file against my previous employer? The opposing attorney, one of the first steps is going to be to ask for all of their employment files. And they're going to first look for if you have an employee handbook that was sent to your team. And the reason that is if you do have a handbook in place and you have all that documentation easily pulled, then it shows that you're more likely to be responsible for the rest of the employment, and making sure that you're treating your employees fairly and following all the regulations in your state. If you don't have a handbook, they're like, aha, this employer might not be following all the rules if they don't have this handbook in place. So it's kind of like your first shield. It may seem silly, but it's a psychological thing. And you just obviously you want to make sure that you're educating your team on what your rules are, regulations, what protections that they have in place, what they need to do if they have any concerns in the practice. It really just, again, is your first line of defense on all aspects there. And then another little did you know, so the average cost of a discrimination claim that goes to trial can be between $150,000 to $200,000. Obviously, no one wants to be paying that crazy of a number. And your handbook can clearly, as I said, outline your complaint protocol. So if they do have a concern, they know exactly what they need to do to bring it to you versus just holding it in and coming down the road to sue you once they're gone. So it just establishes that protocol from the beginning. Okay, so handbook software, where do you start to get a handbook? There are specific requirements, like with everything else, based on your state. So each state has their own leave laws and pay requirements, overtime requirements. So it can get pretty complicated. So we have a handbook software that is customized to you and your state. So you'll answer a full questionnaire and then it'll generate your state specific handbook for you. And we guide you along the way because we know it can be overwhelming. You don't know what's supposed to go in a handbook. So and nor should you. So we have recommended by HR for Health next to answers that we recommend for best practice. And then we also have little tips along the way on how to answer the questions. So if it needs more information, we give you those tips and tidbits along the way as well. I'll show you what this looks like in the software and you can kind of get a better idea of how to do it. But we walk you through this. No one should have to be Googling or writing handbook policies on their own. Okay, and then the next one is documents. So the importance of having electronic storage. So you may be doing all of your forms, manually printing. You want to make sure that you have them electronically stored so that if anything ever happened, they're safe and protected. You don't have to worry about searching for them. And then also there are about 10 or 12 to 18 required forms for new hires per state. So it depends on the state again. Some have more, some have fewer. But you want to make sure that you have all those state specific forms for your new hires. And then everything is electronically signed in HR for Health, so you can easily find their electronic signature. The other nice thing is when you're electronically sending it to them, you can actually prove when it was sent to them versus a paper form. You might hand it to them in person, but you can't prove that you gave it to them on July 3rd. You can say that it's just a he said, she said. So that's the other thing. Even if they haven't signed it yet, you can electronically prove when it was sent to them. So that's one of my favorite things about electronic storage and electronic signatures in general. And then things like, again, I mentioned the I-9 with the law updates. There is a new form for that. So you want to make sure that you always have the latest version there. Okay, and then the next one is a resource center. So we have an HR resource center that has templates, performance tips, recruiting guide, interview questions that you might want to ask, really anything that it just comes up in the day-to-day employment process. So you want to make sure that you have access to something like that so that you're not having to manually draft any of these documents. If you're a current client, make sure that you're checking this out. There's a lot of good information in there. We also include all of our previous webinars, so if you're ever looking for, the one that Taylor did on onboarding, you can check it out there as well. And then just a little quick tip, we do have offer letter templates in there for temporary employees, working interviews, and for full-time employment. You do need to have an offer letter in place for temporary employees and for working interviews that specifically outlines the beginning and the end time for it, what they're going to be paid. But most crucial is the end date, because you don't want it to be misconstrued as full-time employment, and then you could get mixed up in a wrongful termination claim or something like that because it wasn't clear that the employment ended on a certain date. So you always want to make sure that that end date is in there. And we have all those templates included in the HR Resource Center for you. Okay, well, enough talking about it. Let me show you what all of these look like. I'm gonna go ahead and bring over the software. Log in. Okay, awesome. So this is one of our test accounts. First, I want to show you what we initially started talking about was the law updates. So we have this handy little resource center in the bottom right-hand corner. If you click this, you can see what's new that we've published. So the first one is law updates. So there's 14 new ones that I haven't seen yet. These are going to be based on your state. So some of them are going to be federal, like the new I-9 form. Others are going to be state specific, like this California minimum wage updates, the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act. If you didn't see our webinar on that, I recommend going back to watch it just so you know what you have to do to accommodate your team there. And we always have a little learn more, so if you want to learn more about it, but we give you the basics so you don't have to go research it further. So I highly recommend, if you're a current client, make sure you're keeping up with these just so you know what's happening. There's a lot of other good resources in here. So again, current clients, I encourage you to go check these out. We also have all of our webinars and events listed here as well. And then next, I want to show you the new hire checklist. So I mentioned documents a lot. I mentioned new hire forms a lot. This is the new hire checklist that sends all of the required forms for your state to an employee as soon as they register. My favorite thing about this is that all of these forms actually pre-populate. So it has all the employees' information, so they're not having to fill that information out. And some of these forms require your business's information, so that's going to all pre-populate as well because we already have all of your business information. So again, saves you time up front filling out the document, but then it also saves the employee time. Again, every minute counts, so we want to save it as much as we can. And then here you can see the I-9 has an update next to it. So if you click this, you can either accept or ignore. Obviously, we highly recommend that you accept it, but you can choose to ignore any of the new forms that we're adding to the new hire checklist. But again, it says mandatory, so we recommend that you accept it. And then I do want to show you what it looks like from an employee's perspective. So this is an offer letter that was sent to me. I'm now viewing it as an employee. If I click sign, we'll see that it's pre-populating with all the information. So the California Dental Number 1 Incorporated, again, it's a test account, but it has my job title, when I started, my start time, what the address is, what my initial schedule is. I'm a non-exempt employee starting at $200 per hour. Lucky me. So the employees can see this and then they'll electronically sign it. But again, this just saves you time from having to fill all this out before sending it to them. It's going to pre-populate and automatically send when they register. So personally, this is one of my favorite features because it just saves so much time in the onboarding process. Awesome. The next thing I want to show you is our Handbook software. Again, this is a test account, so there are quite a lot of handbooks. You'll just have one, so don't let this overwhelm you. I'm going to go ahead and go to one that has law updates in it so you can see what that looks like. But first I wanted to go to, this is the questionnaire that you'll fill out to generate your state-specific handbook. So I'll go into one of these questions. The first one I want to show you is how long is your introductory period? So we recommend 90 days. And it's going to have this little badge next to it that says recommended by HR for Health. So you can always see as you're going through, like, oh, I'm not sure which one to do. You can see our recommendation from our HR team. So you don't have to, spend time trying to call us. You can just get this information right here. We don't want to leave you hanging. We want to guide you along the way. And then we also have this little drop down, how do I answer this question? So this is just helpful information about the introductory period. So you'll have these little tips along the way. If you're an existing client and you haven't finished your questionnaire yet, make sure that you go check these out if you got stuck on anything. Of course, if you're really stuck, give us a call. We're happy to help you. But the idea is to make it as quick as possible for you so that you can just do it in one sitting. So all of this is here to guide you along the way. And then the next step, once you've completed your questionnaire, is to review all of your policies. So similar to the new hire checklist, it tells you if it's recommended, mandatory. You can really choose what you want to keep, what you want to add. You can edit any of these policies as well. And then this toggle is automatic law updates. So if you have this toggled, anytime that there's a law update, we're going to automatically update your handbook for you, so you don't have to worry about accepting any updates. But in this case, they had this unchecked before, so you can see all these law updates here. So they haven't looked at it in a while, so there's a lot of law updates that they need to review. So let's look at the military leave one. We're going to highlight what changes were made, so you're not having to compare the two policies and figure out what the changes were before you're accepting it. So here you can see that we changed he or she to they. Here you can see that we added this additional paragraph. So again, you're not having to review the whole policy again. You can just from a high level skim what the changes were. Again, this was his or her, and now it's there. He or she was changed to they. So if everything looks good to you there, you can go ahead and accept the update or ignore the update, or you can choose to edit from here. Again, we're always going to recommend that you accept the update, but you can technically do whatever you want with it. So after you review all of this, everything looks good to go. You can go to the next button and send it electronically to your team. Again, the nice thing there is you can electronically see the timestamp on when it was sent to your employees. Again, they can't say that they never got it. And then it's going to automatically be added to your new hire checklist. So again, when your new hires are registered, they're going to get a copy of the handbook as well. So you're not having to remember like, oh, wait, did I send Susan the new handbook or did she get it? It's going to automatically be sent with your new hire checklist. So I know handbooks can be overwhelming, but we try to make it as easy as possible. So I highly recommend checking out the Handbook software. And then last but not least, I wanted to just give you a high level overview of our resource center because there is so much good information in here. So you can see all the templates here, 75 best interview questions, telephone pre-screen interview questions. We have the offer letter templates, guides on, recruiting and retaining top talent. I know it's really hard to find team members right now, so that has some good tips in there. So just a lot of information, some white papers, one of our most popular blogs. Again, just anything you could need in your day-to-day HR needs. So I highly recommend checking all of this out. And then again, it does include all of our previous webinars as well. So if you're like, I can't remember when that one was, but there was some good information on employee performance, so I want to go check it out, you can always go back and revisit those as well. Awesome. Well, that's all the fun things that I wanted to show you guys in the software. So let's go back to the slides and I'll kick it back to you, Taylor.
Look at that, I popped out of nowhere. All right, and so as we start to wrap it up today, I want to give you a few of the summary bits of what we talked about and how you can do this for yourself. So if you're already a client, you can take it for a test drive. We want you to explore all of these different law updates in our resource center. So you can check out the new hire checklist and any updates to documents. And you don't want to miss the recommended by section in our handbook. So when you begin to create your handbook, you have a recommended button that comes up, and you'll see this once you log in. There's a cute little logo in the bottom right corner that has like a glow around it so you can't miss it, and select the employee guide to be given your step-by-step tutorial. And in the end, HR for Health is more than a resource. It's a friendly companion ready to guide you through the wilderness of HR. We're here, we're clear, and we're ready to help. Now, isn't it about time you let HR for Health take the HR wheel? I know, that was so cute, right?
I
And
love
then I'm
it.
going to go ahead and summarize everything we talked about, and you're going to hear it from someone that's just in marketing. So if I can understand it, you can understand it. And the top 3 hacks that we went over were the HR assistant. It's easy, breezy, beautiful, and accessible for you to use at any time. And it's in the bottom right-hand corner, so you never lose it. You can store your documents in our cloud-based software. And that's not just to say it's the same as Google Drive or Dropbox or anything else that people are using. I don't even know these days. You can store all of your documents and your notes that you keep about employees. And the best part about this is it timestamps it. So if you were to just type this in a Word document, maybe on the Notes app in your phone or a Google Doc, none of those things will hold up in court because there's not getting a timestamp. It can be edited at any time, and it's not keeping track of every little change that you make. We do this with our software, and we store these documents that way you're compliant, and you can go back and say, well, I wrote this note about your performance on this day and at this time, and yet you're complaining or submitting something to me after this date. That's not adding up. So it'll keep you safe in the courtrooms, and it'll keep you safe inside the workspace as well, because you're able to have this track record. And then the last thing that we talked about is the handbook. So it'll always update with the newest laws, policies, and procedures. The handbook is your key to success. It is the first thing that your employees see. It lays out your values and your mission as a healthcare practice, but it also lays out, and the best way that I can say it is like, this is how they're supposed to act. If you want to give them the tip for success and how to be a good employee, because in med school, they learned exactly how to be the best dentist, healthcare practitioner, anything in that range. But maybe they didn't learn how to be the best employee and how to report to a boss. That's where your handbook comes in. It lays it all out. And once they sign it, they're agreeing to every policy that you've laid before them, and they're agreeing to how you've decided to run your healthcare practice. And that is the first thing that they sign, seal, and deliver back to you, and how you can stay safe, compliant. And it's super easy to start off with a handbook because you're giving it to them right away. They have to sign it, and they have to understand that this is what you're expecting of them. So I know that was a ton of talking, and if you need a moment to digest all of this information, we have our contact information here. Go to our website, or you can email us at hello@hrforhealth.com. So easy to remember. So if you're up in bed late at night and you're sitting and scrolling and you're like, oh, you know what? I would just be so much happier if I had a software to do all of this employee management for me. Just
Yeah.
send us an email. We don't care if it says sent from an iPhone at the bottom. We don't need any of the formalness of it. Send us an email, ask us more questions. We want you to feel really confident about your purchase with us. And we want you to feel more confident about everything that we handle for you, and we want to be your partner in it. We don't want to talk down to you or over explain things that just don't make sense. So thank you, Lauren, for the presentation today, and please reach out and contact us if you have any questions. Are there any final thoughts from you, Lauren?
No, I was just checking to see if we got any questions. It looks like actually we did get one about if they have to pay overtime for per diem employees. So I'll just touch on that really quickly. So per diem, as I'm sure you all know, is very common pay practice in the healthcare world. So you do have to pay them overtime. So per diem is considered a non-exempt employee because they're not on a set salary. So it can get pretty tricky. You do want to make sure that you're calculating overtime based on your state and making sure that you're paying that extra amount correctly. Good news is we do take care of per diem overtime as well. So don't worry, we'll take care of that as well. You don't have to worry about those calculations. But yes, they do technically have to be paid overtime. So if you have any questions on, how to set that up, reach out to us and we can help you with getting that going.
Awesome. I'm glad because I don't understand anything about overtime. So
Yeah, just let us take care of it.
thank you so much, Lauren. And I'm
Awesome.
excited to see